Hi, everyone. This is William Ford. Welcome back to Atlanta Music Critic. This is our second installment of Canon Fodder, a series of conversations about how classical music actually functions across media, institutions, and audiences. In this discussion with Sherry Brownrigg of KVNO Public Radio in Omaha, the focus turns to classical radio, how a station operates, how programming decisions are made, and how a local station connects to its community. Along the way, the conversation touches on the realities behind the broadcast: staffing, funding, automation, and the balance between familiar repertoire and newer works. What follows is an informal exchange, less a traditional interview than a conversation about how things work. Thanks for watching.
William, hello.
Hello, how are you?
Good. How are you doing?
I'm good. Why is it that I recognize your voice so well?
You must be a KVNO listener.
As a matter of fact, I am. It's really great to meet you.
Yeah, you as well.
It's interesting to talk with one of the executives of one of the few remaining full-time classical music stations in the country. How
Yeah.
many are there actually in the latest count? Do you know?
Well, we always say about 55,
How long have you been with KVNO?
about 6.5 years.
Did you work in public media before KVNO?
No, I did not. No. No, I worked in basically adult contemporary radio, and then I worked in other nonprofit radio, and I was actually president of a radio network up in Minneapolis and Green Bay called Relevant Radio. And then I did marketing and traveled the world, did that for about 15 years, and I just missed radio so much. And I decided to get back into it, and I saw this position was open. And I'd never been in public radio before, but I knew I did not want to go back to commercial radio. So it just didn't seem like it was really me anymore. So I applied for the job, and the rest is history.
Did you have specific training somewhere for your radio voice?
I did actually. I went to a small state college, Wayne State College, which is about 2 hours from here. And I chose it. I remember this so well that I looked at a lot of other places, but I knew exactly what I wanted to do. I wanted to get on the air. And when I went for that college visit, they sat me down in front of a microphone and let me talk and record. And I actually got to host a little show, and they sold me big time. And it was just so wonderful to be able to do that. It just was a great experience. And then I was on the small station that was in Wayne, Nebraska, a town of about 5,000, but I was the first woman on the air, if you can believe that, in 1981 at this station. And it was really quite a thing. And I just loved it. And I got some other offers from Kansas City and Philadelphia, after I came to Omaha, but then I had met my husband, and you know how that goes.
Sure. This morning I was listening to Jeff Koterba, and he played a piece by a female composer named last name Coleman. It was Sigan. What was
Mm,
so incredible about it was hearing a contemporary work played early in the morning, which I thought
yeah,
was great because
yeah,
so much of classical radio is the top 10 or the top 20.
yeah.
And it was really great to hear that. So I guess your program manager deserves credit for programming something like that early in the morning. It was great.
Yeah. Well, I'm actually the program director as well, but that was probably Emily McIver, our music director. She's got a PhD in music performance, and she really knows. She knows her stuff. And she does pepper in modern works here and there. We have to be careful that they're not too crazy because we will get sometimes complaints about that. But we've got a show on every Friday night called Modern Classics that we put a lot of our, modern works into that, and it's very contextual, which I think is helpful.
Yeah, she does a great job of putting the music in context and also music of a particular type or composer or approach, which I think is really interesting when she does that.
Yeah.
I work with the Atlanta Symphony, and
Oh,
when
excellent.
I drive home on a Friday night after a concert, I get to hear modern classics. So that's always a treat.
That's funny. I always listen too when I come home from the Omaha Symphony. And I have to say I've never been to an Atlanta Symphony Orchestra performance, but I'd love to go someday.
The orchestra is really, really, really quite good, and it has
That's
very broad range of programming, which is nice. I interviewed Thomas Wilkins, who used to be with the Omaha Symphony,
yeah.
probably maybe 8 or 9 years ago. And he talked about the unique quality of Omaha with regard to giving. Does that resonate with you?
It absolutely does. We have such an incredible community. The arts community is really quite large for a city this size, right in the middle of America. And the giving community is very focused on local. I love it. I mean, we get such a great response when we truly ask people, you present the need, and they come through. It's really quite wonderful.
I also noticed that KVNO does have that close relationship with the Omaha Symphony. How did that arise?
I think we've had a close relationship that predates me, but when I came, I found opportunities that would allow us to even get closer. And we have just a great working relationship. We do a lot of things together. We give each other, I would say, a lot of freebies, just support each other in a way that I think is really unique. I haven't seen that kind of in-depth support from any other station, any other classical station around the US with their local symphony. In fact, we just had another meeting today. We have a joint event coming up in May that features a live program. Symphonic Connections is a program that's hosted by Maestro Ernest Richardson from the Omaha Symphony. And it's going to be a really intimate event that is performed here on the campus of the University of Nebraska at Omaha, where he will actually take questions from the audience and the answers will be performed by the Omaha Symphony, who will be there on stage. It's a wonderful relationship that we have.
Will that be at the Strauss Performing Arts Center?
It is.
A very nice venue in
Yeah,
a
it's really
nicely
intimate.
updated School of Music.
Yeah, the School of Music, I'm looking at it out my window right now. It's just a lovely place. And that particular concert hall is set up so that there is no bad seat. And it's very, very intimate. So you're on stage and you can see every single person in the audience. So it's perfect for an event like this. And they have so many concerts there. We often hold our classical kids showcase there, which is where we honor all the classical kids from each month of the year, and they get to perform and their families get to come.
How long has the Classical Kids program been going on?
About 26 years. It's also part of our core mission is helping people to understand that classical music is very accessible, that when kids can even access it, it makes a huge difference. And, we've had so many classical kids who stay in touch with us and let us know. Not all of them, of course, are performing in a symphony somewhere. There just aren't that many jobs, but there are so many of them that are still making music. There was one, in fact, who is a physician in Chicago, and she is still playing amateur violin. She plays with friends and sometimes with an amateur orchestra. And she said Classical Kid really helped her to understand the value of music in her life.
As I recollect, they get a $300 scholarship plus some
Yes,
tickets to the Omaha Symphony plus ice
ice
cream.
cream.
Exactly.
And now we actually have day passes to Fontanelle Forest as well. That's a nature preserve that's right here in the city and, just a legacy organization. So, we've got a lot of these organizations who are hearing, after 26 years, hearing about Classical Kid and saying, oh, we'd love to be a part of it. And I think that is really a result of all the different work that we've been doing in the community because that's really very, very important for us is to be out in the community working with whether it's the Cathedral Arts Project, their big flower festival, which happens in February when everybody's cold and needs to to be surrounded by flowers, to, just some of these really awesome, incredible legacy events that are happening on the mall downtown in the heat of the summer. We like to be everywhere. So that's really paying off for us.
How did the kids get designated for that award?
Well, they're nominated. They have to be between 8 and 13, and they're nominated. And then we have three judges from the community who are involved in music. One of them is with the Omaha Symphony, and one of them is with the Omaha Conservatory of Music, and then another is with the School of Music here on the campus of the University of Nebraska at Omaha. So they understand, they know how young the kids are, old the kids are, so they're able to judge them age appropriate. And so they will judge them, and they name 3 months of classical kids at a time. And we have dozens of applications, which is, I think, really tough for the judges because I listen to them too. And I'm glad that I am not a judge because that would be really difficult. But it's so much fun. It's a great idea. It's very transportable, and we all share across the nation, all the classical stations share ideas.
The program with Maestro Richardson, do you share that with other radio stations?
It's still local right now, but we're definitely planning to do that because it's designed as a local program to begin with. It's really performing very, very well for us. We have a lot of people who tune in to listen when it's on, but we definitely plan to make that available. And the funny thing is I originally had titled it when we were working on creating it From the Mind of Ernest Richardson, because listening to it, you can just imagine what it's like to talk with Ernest. He's so engaging. He's got all this information in his brain, and he's really just so excited about sharing it. So I said, if we could take a Spock mind meld and just transfer all that information to our listeners, what a great show that would be. And it really has turned out to be good.
Is it every week throughout the year, or is there like a summer break, something like that?
No, it's every week. We don't always have a new show because Ernest is also the music director for Steamboat Springs in Colorado. So he's very busy.
And that's all recorded at your studio, or can he do that remotely?
We do it here in our studio.
How many employees does KVNO have?
Well, we've got 10 full-time employees, and when you add in all the part-time people, then it's over 20. So we have a lot of great announcers who basically are fill-in, so they're not always heard on the air. But we have a pretty small team, but I'll tell you, the effect has been really, really good.
Otis 12, who is kind of a Nebraska legend for his wonderful radio voice and his wit, retired about a year ago. It seemed like you all had been anticipating that by introducing Jeff Koterba in the morning, me one day a week, and getting everybody primed for the changeover, which seemed to go very smoothly.
Yeah, that is exactly what we do. In fact, Jeff has been with us for over 5 years because he originally served as a fill-in. So we just needed somebody who could do the morning show that wasn't another host, so I would need to take them away from their show. That does happen occasionally, but we needed a backup for Otis, knowing that he was nearing retirement age. We just wanted to get it started now, now being, back in, I think Jeff came in 2021. But to get Jeff acclimated, and then eventually Otis did go to 4 days a week. So Jeff started doing that Wednesday, and it was just always the natural progression that Jeff would be our morning show host. And he's such an interesting guy because he, by his profession, is an editorial cartoonist, and he still has cartoons that are published around the world. He's just such a great communicator. And we found him, we all knew him, but we found that he might be a potential host when he came in to do a midday mixtape with Ben Rasmussen. We listened to him and said, I think there's something there. And he was willing to work and learn. And, I sat in the studio with him for many, many times that he was on the air. But he really kind of just got it, and we're all a work in progress. But Jeff has really enjoyed coming into classical radio. He's very passionate about it.
Have you ever had an instance where you're in front of the microphone and you go blank?
All the time.
Really?
Yes, that has happened to me. Yeah. Even when I was much younger, I remember times where that happened, and you learn to fill with things that you don't necessarily have to think about while your brain catches up to your mouth. So there's little tricks of the trade there.
Is that part of what you learned at Wayne State, or is that just through on-the-job training?
On the job training, yeah.
When you're doing the narration of a live Omaha Symphony broadcast, have you worked up the content of that prior to the broadcast, or is that mostly extemporaneous?
No, we definitely do a produced program. And Colleen Cook is almost always our producer of that. And she conducts a lot of interviews ahead of time. And then have some sound bites available to illustrate some of the things that people will want to know about the program they're about to hear, the works they're about to hear, hearing from the conductor, the soloist, whoever is involved in the production. And she writes the script, and we have some unscripted as well, because as you know, things don't exactly time out. We have a lot of construction happening in Omaha downtown. And so the last few broadcasts that we've had have started a few minutes late while people are trying to find parking and get in. So it's a very produced program, and we've got a team of about 6 people that actually work each time on each production when we do a live broadcast, because we want to do this right. We want to represent KVNO well and the symphony. We just don't think that's fair for us to not do our best work.
I do notice in the morning when there is the excerpt from the archives of the Omaha Symphony that's played, you can really tell the difference between those that were recorded at Witherspoon as opposed to the Orpheum, as opposed to the Holland. The Holland, of course, having just magnificent acoustics.
Really can. And they've gone back to the Witherspoon now because Jocelyn has reopened.
Right.
And I'm not sure if they have done anything in that particular room, but they did a big overhaul of the museum itself, and it's really quite stunning.
I hope they didn't touch that Witherspoon because it's so beautifully preserved Art Deco, particularly the lighting
Yeah,
on the second
yeah,
level.
that's all the same. I think it was maybe if they changed anything, they might have done something acoustically.
Do you have a permanent installation at each place you record, or do your people have to set up the microphones each time and so on?
We do set up the microphones each time, and we basically hook into the sound system that is there. For example, at the symphony, there's a sound booth in the back of the actual concert hall that is just perfect for us, and they're so used to us coming in, and it's great. And we record. We actually have a somebody who records them for broadcast later. Even though we're doing the live broadcast, we have in concert with the Omaha Symphony where we rebroadcast the previous season. And Colleen does the narration around that and produces that program as well. So we've got a whole production there, but we bring our remote broadcast equipment and we go backstage. I love to do those broadcasts. I don't always get to do them, but boy, are they fun. And there's nothing more exhilarating than being backstage and there's a soloist who comes, roaring off the stage to this thunderous applause right to your microphone, and it is exhilarating. There's almost a little bit of a fangirl, like, some of us are a little jealous, like, oh, okay, you get to interview so and so, Emmanuel Axe, or it's
Did you
really
ever have an artist who got to the microphone and again just went blank?
We've never had anybody go blank. We've had some of them actually be very verbose and, take the microphone from us. And we, in broadcasting, that's always like never let them have the microphone, but you can't help it. And, the things they said were great, but we went over time. And so we had to adjust in the second half of that intermission. But, that's what live broadcasts are all about. And that's one of the things that makes them fun. You just don't know what's going to happen.
The other thing that really sticks in my mind is the Saturday morning slow rise,
Mhm.
and the poetry is stunning.
Fernando is a once in a lifetime talent. And he does Saturdays for us. He works other places, but we found him when he was the first non singing fellow at Opera Omaha. They actually had brought him in because of his poetry, and he's a young man. He's in his early 30s, Hispanic, and his poetry is it's stunning. And that particular program, we have so many people who tune in just to hear that poem. The poem's online too, just by popular demand. So,
And the other thing that you do, and I know other stations do it, but they usually don't do it by curating the music locally, is you have overnight classical music.
we do.
And as I recollect, you have two different programs on overnight.
We do. Yes, we have nocturnes hosted by Katrina Narine, and Michael Moriarty hosts Starlight Classics. And Michael is a paraprofessional at Omaha Public Schools and has just been involved with KVNO for over 25 years. Katrina, she came to us because she attended UNO, University of Nebraska at Omaha, on the campus where we are, with Ben Rasmussen. And Ben said, I think maybe we should talk to Katrina. She's never done radio before. She is a professional pianist. We should maybe talk to her and see if she might want to learn and be on the air. Because, in Omaha, you don't have a lot of people around who have classical music radio training and experience. So we know that we're going to need to train them in some way, shape, or form. Now, it's wonderful when they do know classical music, but they have to be good at communicating as well. And Katrina has this incredible voice. It is a really low, deep, just melodic voice. I met with her. She was scared and she said, I would love to do this. I'm terrified, but I'd love to do it. And she has turned out to be one of our most popular on-air hosts. In fact, she's going to be producing some special programs for us this summer that are all about piano music, and she'll be performing them, and we'll record and videotape the performance in the recording studio at Strauss. She's actually very humble, very shy, but when she gets behind the piano, she turns into a diva.
Are they live at night or is that pre-recorded? How does that work?
No, I hate to disappoint people, but no, the overnight folks are not live. They do tape their programs at night, but the reason why this change happened is because of automation systems. And it is primarily on, I would say, most stations that you listen to. They really aren't live at that time. And that's allowed a station like KVNO and all other public radio stations, especially classical music stations. It helps us to balance our budget a little bit more because you're talking about it probably halves the time when that person needs to be here and on the air and recording. They would just be sitting there waiting for this beautiful long piece to finish out. Of course, back in the days when I started in radio, everything was live. And if you had a show that was from midnight to 3, you were there from midnight to 3. I miss those days because that was kind of fun.
The one thing that I want to know, what is the number people should call if they want to donate to KVNO?
Oh gosh, thank you for asking that. Well, it's really easy to do it at kvno.org, so you can do it anytime there. Or we've got a smartphone app. You can just find it wherever you get your apps. But our main number is 402-554-5866. And, we are here during business hours, typical business hours, but you can always leave a message.
Hey, it's been great talking with you. I appreciate it a lot.
Oh, William, this has been a joy. Thank you so much for what you do.
Well, thank you. And keep up the good work.
Thank you. We intend to.
All right. Talk soon.
Okay, bye-bye.
Bye-bye.
In this conversation, one thing that stands out is how much of classical radio is shaped not just by taste, but by real constraints, audience expectations, funding, and the need to balance familiar repertoire with newer work. And just as important is the role a station like KVNO plays within its local community, not just as a broadcaster, but as a partner in sustaining musical life. If you found this discussion useful, you can find more thoughtful essays on classical music and its institutions at w4.substack.com. You can also support this channel at patreon.com/Atlanta Music Critic. And as always, thank you for watching, and if you haven't already, please like and subscribe.